Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has activated rarely used emergency powers in an effort to end protests that have shut some U.S. border crossings and paralyzed parts of the capital. Under the Emergency Act, the government introduced measures intended to cut off protesters' funding and took steps to reinforce provincial and local law enforcement with federal police. The Freedom Convoy protest, started by Canadian truckers opposing a COVID-19 vaccinate or quarantine mandate for cross-border drivers, have drawn people opposed to Trudeau's policies on everything from pandemic restrictions to a carbon tax. Copycat trucker protests have also sprung up in Israel, France, Australia, and New Zealand. Mr. Trudeau said the truckers' blockades were harming Canada's economy and endangering public safety.
After discussing with Cabinet and caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations. I want to be very clear. The scope of these measures will be time-limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. The Emergencies Act will be used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies at all levels across the country. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions. The police will be given more tools to restore order in places where public assemblies can constitute illegal and dangerous activities, such as blockades and occupations, as seen in Ottawa, the Ambassador Bridge, and elsewhere. These tools include strengthening their ability to impose fines or imprisonment. The government will designate, secure, and protect places and infrastructure that are critical to our economy and people's jobs, including border crossings and airports. We cannot and will not allow illegal and dangerous activities to continue. In addition, financial institutions will be authorized or directed to render essential services to help address the situation, including by regulating and prohibiting the use of property to fund or support illegal blockades. And finally, it will enable the RCMP to enforce municipal bylaws and provincial offences where required.
Arise U.S. Correspondent Rotimi Kade joins us now for more. Rotimi, thanks for joining the program. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has activated emergency powers in order to tackle these vaccine mandate protesters. Can you bring us up to speed here?
Many weeks of peaceful protest that turned a political rally over vaccine mandates that drew global attention. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, as you heard in that particular piece, finally got a bipartisan emergency powers to actually nip the illegal blockades in the board. The Invokes Emergency Act actually gives the Prime Minister the broad powers to actually restore law and order, which includes, freezing of assets, bank accounts of protesters, and deactivating their licenses and insurance policies. So the government also intends to actually use that powers to stop the crowdfunding sites like the GoFundMe, etc., that was used at the time of the protest to actually keep up the illegal occupation in those areas like the Ambassador Bridge and some other areas that they were occupying at the time. And don't forget also that they also got millions in donations from some interest in the United States. But not everybody is on board with the use of this emergency powers by the Prime Minister. Some leaders of oppositions in some provinces actually want the Prime Minister against taking a step to use the emergency power, saying it could actually inflame an already tensed situation. Would this have any political consequence for the Prime Minister and his government? Only time will tell.
So, Rotimi, we heard a moment ago that Mr. Trudeau had consulted widely before bringing in these measures that will allow him to freeze personal accounts of anyone linked with the protest. What's been the reaction from Canadians and from the truckers?
Yes, as I said earlier, it got a bipartisan support before the emergency powers was given to him to actually use it in order to restore law and order. But a little part of, even the kitchen cabinet were not really happy because they believe that it could have some sort of trickling down effects, as we've seen in the U.S., last year when we saw the insurrection of the Capitol. Majority of Canadians don't want a repeat of that in Canada. They believe that even the protest has been influenced or hijacked by interest from the United States. So they actually are a little bit reserved about the Prime Minister's hardline decision or stand in stamping out the protesters, because they believe this could actually generate into something that Canada has never seen in its history. So, but the vast majority of Canadians aren't happy about the development. They've never seen something like this. In fact, some of them actually expressed some sort of, surprise that there could be a sort of a long-standing protest that held the capital for more than 2 weeks, and they actually believe that with a little bit of dialogue here and there, something could happen. But right now, since things are getting out of hand, the Prime Minister, I believe that it's high time to actually nip it in the bud once and for all, because it's actually causing Canada a lot of, billions of dollars in terms of trades with the United States, and majority of it being in the auto industry.
All right.
All right, Rotimi, for the brevity of time, let's turn to other news. Let's talk about the accounting firm Mazes. They are cutting ties with former President Donald Trump and his organization and the former president himself. Now, talk to us. What's really happening here?
Well, Aaron, just when we thought that the former president is beginning to see some respite from attacks from Republicans and, of course, Democrats alike, this dummy reports from his accounting firm dampens any hope of a comeback for the Trump campaign. And the Trump organization has been in the eye of the storm since he left office, and it doesn't look like that storm is going away anytime soon. So the crux of it is that the accounting firm actually said in a letter that was sent to the Trump organization that it could no longer stand behind some of the statements that it prepared for Mr. Trump from 2011 to 2020, which means that some of the letters, the tax letters that was sent to the IRS, they find some discrepancies in it, and they're ready to part ways with Trump organization because of that.
Well, we will watch as it all unfolds. Thank you so much for joining the program today, Rotimi Kade.
You're welcome.